The infamous SK4992 commented a very good suggestion, on the video that I built this pond. They said that the pond needs fish, frogs, or axolotl. Give it some life, and I completely agree. So I have a whole bunch of these fish here, and sadly I do only have salmon. I am out of rockets currently, or else I would have flown off to like a warm ocean to get some like tropical fish and stuff. So we can continue adding to this for sure, but for right now I just added a handful of salmon here, and I'm also gonna add a frog, though there's a very solid chance this guy just ends up getting lost at some point, but I suppose let's see what happens. You do your thing, little man. And I do still have 3 buckets of salmon and another bucket of tadpole left, so let's go add these to the other pond over here. I don't want to add axolotl now to the ponds, because I'm fairly certain they eat fish that are just swimming around. I'm pretty sure I made that mistake before. But let's get the tadpole and the 3 salmon added to this pond as well with villager. They can all hang out together. Hopefully these frogs just kind of stay in the area, but it's probably not going to happen. Anyway, though, welcome back to some more of my survival world. Hope everyone's having a great day. Now, it's been a little while since I've actually made any progress on this world. But last time, you can see the build just kind of through the trees here. I built a huge art museum in our Italian village. And I am still so happy with this build, man. This thing is nuts for my standards. But I did a little bit of work on stream a few weeks ago, and I kind of laid out the interior. There's no doubt still a lot of work to be done on the inside, but at least I kind of sectioned it off and kind of have like the foundation and like the layout of what it's going to look like in here. And I did add a few additional rooms. I forgot the archway for this room on the end here, but that's fine. But last episode, the only one I had built up was this green one. So now we have like that purple one up front, an orange one, and a yellow one. But again, there's no real detail in here. They're kind of just empty, hollow rooms with not much decoration or anything like that. But there is a staircase going up to the second floor. We have 2 Endermen up here as well, just kind of vibing out. And I have more spots for rooms up top. So I'll slowly build up this interior kind of as I go here. Today, though, I want to continue working in the Italian village. My goal for the next like 500 days in this world is to completely finish this build. And we're definitely off to a good start, but there's still a lot of space to fill in. And we do have a little bit laid out. These terracotta blocks are supposed to signify the pathways, and these yellow blocks are supposed to signify other flower fields. And then, of course, we have like blocks of homes and stuff with the stone. So I have a little bit kind of planned out, but not too much. So I think what I'm going to do initially in this video is continue mapping out this whole area. I want to kind of get it completely planned out before I start building anything. And of course, I don't mean like plan it out in creative first and then come back through. I don't really do that in this world. I did it for this building, though. I feel like it was kind of needed. There's no way I was going to build anything this cool in survival. But for the smaller scale buildings in this area, I'm definitely comfortable to freehand them, and that's what I want to do. But just having a nice like blueprint is always very useful. So I feel like that's a good place to start. I guess let me take all this down, because this is definitely going to be in the way. Why do I not have an ender chest on me? All right, I guess we're not using a hoe on these leaves. And you know what? It is very early in the video, but I do think I'm just going to cut it to a time lapse to get all of this kind of like busy work done. I think it's going to look better that way, and you'll kind of get the bigger picture if you can kind of see it from a bird's eye view the whole time. And then when I'm back, I can explain my thought process of where I decided to put everything. So let me turn up the music a little bit, and let's cut it to a quick time lapse. I am now in the YouTube membership hall. I want to put these YouTube members up on the wall before I forget. I think I forgot last episode, and that's on me, obviously. I don't know who else it would be on, but my bad. I will travel over to the Italian village in a second, but let me just put all the new members of the Shramley up on the wall. We have Da Bebi, we have Mia, we have Possum Teefs, Mark, Emily, Bincessa 36, we have Melcunny 7887, Alex P X9S, and Soul Pride Gaming. Welcome to the wall. Thank you all so much for becoming Shramalams. Now though, let's head over to the Italian village. I actually did find a couple rockets chilling around. I have about a stack. But here is the new layout. So there's a lot going on here. Kind of looks messy, but let me kind of explain everything. And I'm going to do this from above. I wish I could like stay in the air while flying, but it's just not really that possible. Okay, so these white structures, the ones with snow as the outline, these are going to be other like staple buildings of this area. They're not just going to be like filler houses. So like if I were to have mapped out the flower shop before I built it like this, they would have been this same color. So kind of imagine like just a building with a purpose. I don't know why it's taking me so long to say that. This one on the front is going to be a horse stable. I think having that immediately when you walk in is probably the best course of action. You can just park your horse, enjoy the rest of the city on foot. That's kind of the idea there. And I think this is probably going to be like Ghost's home as well, because still he's living in the very small horse stable I have attached to my house. And then this building over here, I'm imagining this is going to be a church. I think in this spot over here is just kind of perfect. You have a good view if you're going to be like up top of this tower that's going to be back here. That's what this like half circle signifies. So the tower up top, we're going to have a cool view of the valley. You can look over at the area. I think this is a good spot for a church. And I feel like it makes sense in a village like this. There might be other like purposeful buildings in this area as well, but these are just the two that I thought of right now. There's still more room, obviously, to add a whole bunch more stuff, but I think those are going to be the focus of this episode right now, is just getting both the stable and the church built up. Before I do get to any material gathering or anything like that, let me just kind of like go over quickly everything else that I put down. So we have a handful more house locations now. All of these like rows of stone, they're just going to be really similar to these houses. So like that row right there and this row right here, kind of the template I'm going to be replicating everywhere. I'm probably going to continue changing up the colors. I want this village to be really, really colorful. I don't really want to reuse any of the house colors just yet. The roof colors I can definitely reuse, but the actual walls I think I'll probably keep as colorful as possible. So that's what all of these rows of stone signify. This terracotta right here is this pathway that we already laid out. So that's just going to kind of continue all the way around. We're going to go up these retaining walls. There's going to be a couple other like staircases to get up to the different levels. And yeah, I think this whole area is going to look really sick when all that's put in. Oh, I forgot the yellow. The yellow terracotta just outlines the flower fields. We're going to have a huge flower fields back here. It's going to be sectioned off by a couple of different pathways. I think it's going to look really cool. This village is going to very much start coming to life in the next handful of episodes here. But like I mentioned, I'm going to be working on the horse stable up front and the church out back in today's video. And I think it would be wise to figure out the color palettes of each of these really quickly, and then I'll know exactly what I have to go gather. So let me grab Ghost, head back to my starter house, grab up a couple random blocks, and let's see what kind of color palette I can come up with for each of these buildings. All right, so I have some materials on me now. So what I'm going to do, I think, is just use this little like rectangle out front to showcase the color palette. And this color palette is going to be very, very basic, I think. So the wall colors are mostly going to be out of stripped oak wood. I'm also going to be texturing in a little bit of regular oak planks alongside of this stripped wood. And I also want to bleed these oak planks just into a little bit of jungle, just to add even more texture and color variety. So that's going to be like the main color palette here for the walls. And then I think the roof is just going to be out of spruce. So it's going to look something kind of like this. This might not be the exact like height of this thing, but just kind of wanted to use this wall to showcase what kind of colors you can expect. I knew I forgot something. I should have grabbed some copper. But I think I'm going to use copper grates as the windows for this build. I think that looks really good with a color palette like this. And then we can use spruce to like frame out the windows a little bit better, add some window shutters. I think something like that would look pretty good. So that's going to be the idea for this one. This is going to be a really basic building, but I think it's going to look good. But now let's move on to the church. This one's going to be a lot more complicated. Now, when I'm working on a relatively big building like this, that's going to have a bunch of different blocks kind of meshed together, what I like to do is break it up as much as I can. So I'm going to break this thing up into 3 distinct color palettes. We're going to have one for the foundation, one for the wall, one for the roof. And I'm going to employ like the same strategy for each of these sections when it comes to figuring out the color palette. And I've definitely explained my thought process when it comes to picking out color palettes and stuff like that before, but I feel like it's been a little while, so I kind of want to just reiterate here in case anyone can take anything from this. So when I'm going about figuring out color palettes, I usually just pick one color that I want to use as like the main color for the section of the building I'm working on. I'm going to cut you off right there, Shram, from a couple days ago, because he does a terrible job at explaining what he's trying to explain. So instead, let me take over. So my point still stands about picking like a central color. But what I failed to mention is that I normally will pick a couple blocks that are like the same color. So in this instance, the brown mushroom, the packed mud, and the mud bricks are all pretty much the same color. They just have like slightly different textures. Now I want these 3 blocks to make up that central color that I'm going for. Now in the end, I might not use all of these blocks, but I just like having the option to substitute one here and there just to kind of make the building just look a little bit more unique. So that's why I normally will come up with a few blocks that are pretty much the same color. Now, once I find the color that I want to use, and subsequently the blocks in the game that match that color, at least as closely as possible, I will then try to figure out one long gradient with this color kind of in the middle. That might sound a little bit complicated, but the easiest way to do that is to break it up into two small gradients on either side. So what that means here is this mushroom stem. I think jungle looks really nice next to mushroom stem or next to packed mud. I think these two blocks are kind of interchangeable for the most part. So I think jungle is a good transition from this light brown. And then from there, I think oak looks really good next to jungle. And that's probably where I'm going to stop this one. I think that's a good couple of blocks. It gets a different enough color where it's going to like have a nice shading effect. And as I peel back, you can kind of see that in effect here. I could take that a step further, but I don't know. I like ending at the oak. I think that looks nice. Now to head off in this direction with the packed mud, I think dripstone looks really nice next to packed mud. From there, I think we can bleed in a little bit of granite, and from the granite, a little bit of terracotta. So now if I take a step back again, we have a nice long and continuous gradient going from oak wood to terracotta with these blocks in the middle. At least close enough into the middle. And now that I have this gradient laid out like this, texturing and shading and stuff actually becomes fairly easy. And let me show you why. With this segment of texturing with Shram. Is that good? Shading with Shram. Building up a flat wall in a super flat Minecraft world and taking away some of the blocks and using the gradient behind me with Shram. That one's good. That rolls off the tongue. So at some point, my build is going to look like this. Just, you know, more of a building. But I will normally just use one block when I'm making pretty much anything nowadays. And the block I end up choosing for this is just the packed mud in the middle. So I'm going to make the entire build out of that. And then once I do that, I will just kind of poke holes in it, sort of at random, trying to make it not look too symmetrical. But we'll just do this a few different times. And this is what I mean to try to avoid it being too symmetrical. This just looks like too much of a man-made shape right there. So I'm just going to put another block back and make it look a little bit more weird. You kind of want to go for weirdness. So now with these gaps, I'm going to start filling in parts of this gradient. And now since I have this template, it's going to be very, very easy. So every block that's touching this mud, I'm going to make sure it is this brown mushroom block. So let's start up here with this weird gap I made. So everything that's touching the packed mud, I'm going to make sure it's brown mushroom. Not really going to think about it too much. It's just everything that's touching those blocks. And then just do that again. Next step is jungle wood. So now everything touching the brown mushroom, I'm going to make jungle wood. And then the final step, everything touching the jungle wood is going to be oak, which is just that one right there. And I'm going to do that again. Let's go to this bottom right corner. And let's go from this side this time. So let's grab some mud bricks, dripstone, granite, and terracotta. So same thing, everything that's touching this packed mud, I'm going this way now. So it's going to be the mud bricks. And then everything touching the mud bricks is going to be dripstone. Everything touching the dripstone is going to be granite, and then everything touching the granite will be terracotta. And just like that, this wall looks way more interesting. And now that just leaves us one more little area, so I think I'm gonna go with this mud brick gradient again. So let's pop in the mud brick, and then we're gonna end this one at dripstone. So that's just a much smaller version of this gradient. And I think this wall is nicely textured. This is how I've been texturing and shading and whatnot for a pretty long time now. And I think it's worked pretty well for me. And this is a far better explanation than what Shram from a couple days ago provided, but cut that guy some slack, okay? He doesn't exist anymore, and he's having trouble facing that reality. That got weird. But this has been the first installment of building up a flat wall in a super flat world, and then punching some of it away and putting in the gradient that you just talked about before with Shram. I hope this was useful to someone. Now that that's better explained, let's get back to me going over the rest of this building's color palette. Now the roof is going to be much more simple than the wall gradient back here. So the main block I want to use is deep slate. And alongside this cobbled deep slate, I think the deep slate bricks look nice together. Also gets a little bit darker. Even darker than that is the deep slate tiles. and then we can blend that into a little bit of black stone. So that's going to be the darkest that we get in this color palette on the roof. And then we're going to get a little bit lighter as well. I don't have any regular tuff, it's just these tough bricks, but imagine that is normal tuff. I actually just flew back really quickly just to grab a little bit of tuff because I wanted to show this off completely. So after the cobble deep slate, we can get into a little bit of tuff and then maybe even a little bit of mossy cobblestone just to kind of round that off. I could even take that a step further and work in some regular moss. That always looks good too. So that's an option. I don't know if I'm going to go that far, but it's at least something I could do. And now, last but not least, the foundation. And the block that I'm going to start with is tough brick. So from here, I'm going to use a little bit of stone brick as well. And then we can kind of end that at regular stone or maybe even cobblestone. I think that direction looks pretty nice. Now for the other direction, I want to bleed a little bit of these tough bricks into regular tuff. From the regular tuff, mossy cobblestone looks really good. And then from there, regular moss. I also have a couple other random blocks that I do want to throw in just every so often. I have these mossy stone bricks. I could potentially use that, honestly, on either side here. It would look good next to these stone bricks, but it would also look good next to the moss and the mossy cobblestone. And then I also have some pale moss, which could honestly just take the place of this tuff. They're almost like the same block when it comes to the color. So just kind of incorporating a few of those alongside some tuff, I think could look really nice as well. So these are the 3 color palettes that we're going to be using for this church. I think this build is going to look really nice. But I do need to go gather up some of this stuff here. The only block that I'm really missing a lot of is packed mud. I only have 3 more pieces of packed mud. And I would like to fly off to the mangrove swamp and fill up like 1 or 2 shulkers with mud, just so I won't have to really go back super soon after this. But my problem is I don't really have any open shulker boxes. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to free up this red shulker box over here by just building up the horse stable before I go collect anything else, because I do think this is enough materials to get this entire build finished. I actually did find 1 more shulker box in my house, so that's nice, but I still think I'm just gonna go ahead and just build this whole stable first, because if I can fill 2 shulker boxes with mud, that'd make me feel a lot better. So let me get working on this, but for you guys, let me just cut it to a quick time lapse. The horse stable is now done, and Ghost now has a much bigger area to live in. I guess it's not too much of an upgrade, but at least he's the only one in this little pen. So he does actually have some more space. It's nothing like too special, but I do think it looks solid. It's an interesting shape, at least. I actually ended up bumping like the front half of the build out a little bit more just to kind of make the shape a little bit more unique. I didn't like how it was completely flat, and I think this works with the pathway a little bit better. And this thing is going to look really good, I think, as well, especially when we build up the rest of these houses over here, because then this whole like street is going to be filled in with buildings. So I'm really happy with this. I think this is a solid addition. There is an actual inside portion over here. We just have some storage. I didn't know what else to put here. And then this back room also has just a little bit of storage. But we have room for a couple different horses. There are 3 different stalls, and I don't think the horses will be able to get out. I'm actually not sure if they can walk out of this area right here. They might be able to, but I could always just fence gate this bottom section. If I ever had a horse there, I'll probably do that. But I can now clear out both of these shulkers, the red and the white one, and then I'm going to fly off to the mangrove swamp and collect up a ton of mud. So let me go ahead and get that done. But once again, for you guys, let me just cut it to another time lapse. And I think I'll be back to build the interior of the church. I think doing that on camera makes the most sense. I just hate time-lapsing interiors. That's kind of the only reason. But I'll see you guys in a little bit. The church is finished. Well, the exterior of it is, and I'm pretty happy with this. I think this is a cool building. It's a unique color palette. It's not something that I'm too used to building in, and I think I did a pretty good job. The windows are interesting. I wanted to make the windows colorful, so I kind of just like meshed together a couple of different colors of stained glass. We have white, green, and gray. The tower back here, though, I think is just white. I don't know, I think the white stained glass looked better in the tower. So I kind of just left that the way it was, but then the rest of these are just a mixture of the other few. I think it looks pretty good. I'm a really big fan of this tower, though. I think this tower turned out beautifully. I honestly think, like, back here is probably the best view of this whole thing. I kind of wish I made this the front. But oh well, I'm not going to turn this whole building around now. But yeah, you can see all the different blending techniques that I kind of employed here. We have a few different gradients for the foundation, for the walls, and for the roof. And I think they all blend together really nicely. Now, though, it's time to tackle the interior. I have a couple shulker boxes over here with a bunch of random interior decoration stuff, and I'm going to try to put these to good use. First thing I'm going to do is fill in the floor, which I think is going to be out of birch and dark oak, and that might sound weird, but I kind of have an idea. So my thought is that I could just use birch as like the center 3 blocks of the whole church. And then the rest of the floor, I'm just gonna fill in with these dark oak blocks. The idea is that the birch is gonna act as like the main like walkway through the whole church. Just like the center aisle kind of everything. And then the dark oak here will be like what the pews go on, you know? And then I do want a little walkway over to the tower as well. So then it's gonna look something like this. Looks a little bit weird, but I feel like once we put in everything else, it's gonna look a little bit more normal. This back here might end up being all dark oak as well, because this is where like the service would be taking place. You know, they'd be looking this way at everyone in attendance. So this is probably gonna be raised up a little bit more. And I think actually I kind of convinced myself to take this out. And this is gonna conflict with the doorway over here a little bit. Actually, it won't. I could probably have it stop here. Right, and then the actual like staircase to get up to this elevated section, it can be right there. Yeah, I think that works. I think that works pretty well. And I don't really know what to do with the tower. I don't know if I'm going to bring it like all the way down, because obviously you can see the stone kind of creeps into the roof there. But a lot of these blocks here are actually just not necessary at all. So I think what I'm going to do is just take them away. And then maybe we can just have like a ladder over here or something that connects up to some floor up top. Is this one needed? Okay, it's not. Okay, we can take it all the way up to there. I think these can go away as well. And is this one needed? Okay, that's the first one that's actually needed. So it has to be like that at least. That's fine. I can work with that. All right, so now that I got the floor kind of in place, I guess I can put the door back. But now that I have the floor in place, I'm going to go and put in the ceiling after I get rid of these guys. Stop bothering me, please. I'm just trying to build in peace, man. It's not like I seek you guys out. I haven't been to a pillager outpost in like 1,000 days, probably. That's probably not true. I have no idea when the last time I was at a pillager outpost. Display your banner on this tree. Okay, never come back. Please. So I want the ceiling to be out of deep slate blocks again. But I also want there to be like a spruce trim going all the way around. I think this is going to look really cool because against all of these full blocks here, I'm going to be putting stairs. So it's going to kind of stick out a little bit more. And that's kind of the effect that I want to go for. I think alongside these full blocks then, I'm going to put down some of these new shelves. It just makes that shape look a little bit more interesting, going all the way up to the top. Make sure I don't forget to do this on the other side. I'm going to put 2 more of these spruce trims towards the middle of the build as well, just to kind of hide the stone from the tower. I feel like this is probably the best way to do this. And then the last of the spruce is just going to be all the way at the top. So let me connect my scaffolding going all the way across again. This is why scaffolding is the greatest, by the way. But I'm going to put just spruce all in this top section here. And then that should complete the spruce trim going all the way around. Now I just have to fill in the rest of the roof with stairs. And I'm just going to be using a combination of deep slate stairs and blackstone stairs. Pretty much the same gradient that we have on the exterior of the roof too. And I'm just going to throw some torches up here just for now. I do want to come up with some kind of lantern design, but I do want to also light this entire roof up just so I can kind of see what it looks like from down below. All right, that should be the entire ceiling. And let me get rid of the scaffolding. Let's take a look. Yeah, that looks cool. I like this a lot. It's very tall, but that's exactly what I wanted. I wanted this to feel like a pretty grand building when you're inside of it. And I feel like that kind of captures this. All right, that's good. I like that. I actually just thought of one other small design I could potentially add. Do I want to line this whole thing with trapdoors? Yeah, I definitely do. I think that's gonna look way better. Hold on, we're not quite done yet. Okay, now the ceiling is done, and I'm definitely very happy with it. Next up, let's start throwing in the pews. And I think I'm gonna keep these pretty simple, and they're just gonna be out of oak stairs. This feels like enough places for people to sit for a church this big. And I do want to wrap these in spruce signs. All right, just like that. I think that looks a little bit better. And all right, this is starting to kind of look like a church on the inside. Now I would like to continue working on this front section. So I have a little bit of spruce wood on me. Let's throw down a couple spruce logs in the corners. These are going to be stripped. Oh, wait, I want to grab dark oak signs. Hang on a second. Signs have slowly become one of my favorite things to decorate with. I use them all over the place now. But honestly, they just look so good in so many different ways. Okay, so I'm going to be using a combination of these dark oak signs and spruce signs across this whole area. Yeah, something like that looks pretty cool, I think. Now I have 6 lecterns. I want to have 3 of them probably like that, in line with, like, you know, the central aisle there. So I think as a result of that, I'm going to put 2 more stripped spruce logs right there. Let's put a dark oak sign there as well. That should balance out the front a little bit better. I could probably throw a fence in between that. I think that looks pretty good. And now let's throw some dark oak trapdoors on top of the spruce. And then on top of these lecterns, let's use some spruce trapdoors. I think that looks kind of cool, even though you can't see the top of the lectern if you're like back here. But I kind of like what it looks like from over here, though. I might just leave them open. I think leaving them open actually makes a little bit more sense. Yeah, I think that's the better way to do it. I'm just going to let these 3 lecterns breathe. So this is pretty much all of the decoration that I knew I wanted to add in here. And I think from this view right here, this actually looks really good. But I'm not done decorating on the inside just yet. I do want to add some just like extra stuff to make this area pop a little bit more. Voiceover Shram back again. I kind of just went on like autopilot when I was designing the rest of this interior. I didn't really talk all that much, so I figured I would just kind of pop in here to make the video flow a little bit better. With the main room here, there's like 3 areas that branch off, right? We have 2 other small rooms and then the tower. I wanted to section those off from the main room in a more like cohesive way. So the way I decided to do that is just throw in some dark oak doors, and I think they look pretty nice. I don't know exactly what I want to put in these other rooms or the tower. I know that I kind of want to put some cleric villagers in this church eventually, just because I have way too many stacks of rotten flesh in my zombie farm. So maybe I can use one of these rooms just to have a couple clerics to trade with, but I don't really know what to do with the rest of them. So if you have any ideas, please leave them down below. Now, after closing off the main room, I just kind of ran around and threw in just some other pretty basic interior decoration pieces. Like, you know, it's a Shrammy interior. I gotta throw a composter down with a couple leaves in it. That's just my staple at this point, I think. I would argue like 95% of my interiors have at least one of these somewhere. After that, I went around and put down a couple candle holders, and I used this like pot, acacia wood, and a lightning rod design to have the candles sit on. And I think these look really nice and definitely fit the vibe that I'm going for this interior. I wanted to add some more light other than just the candles, so I decided to hang some lanterns down from the ceiling using some spruce fences and some chains. And then finally, this back wall was looking a little bit bare, so I decided to add in just a bit more greenery with a little spruce shelf and some azalea leaves on top of it. And with that, the interior of this church is completely finished for this episode. And now the last few things I have to do before this episode concludes is just connect up the pathway to the already existing one and to, of course, build a couple custom trees surrounding the new build. So let me cut it to one final time lapse to wrap this up. The shaders are now on, the world looks a lot more beautiful and more vibrant, so let's take a look at these new builds with the shaders. Of course, the first one is, it immediately greets you right when you walk into the village. It is the new horse stable, and this is one of the more unique horse stables I've ever made, just because the shape is so weird. It kind of looks like an L-shaped building, but then you kind of pop over here and then there's another little room. So it's a weird building, but it works. It fills up the space really nicely and it like just kind of borders the path super well. So that was why I kind of made it a funky design. and I'm really happy with it. And a much better spot for our man Ghost to be hanging out in. I like this build. It's a nice, you know, first thing to look at when you walk into the village. And then, of course, we have the new church all the way over here near the end of the village. And this thing is sick. I'm really happy with this build. Of course, we have the 2 trees that I built as well to kind of frame it out a little bit better. I just went with this, you know, the same tree design that we're kind of going with all over the place. I probably should find another Italian-inspired tree, but for now, these ones work really, really nicely. And I think it looks nice, you know, like I said, framing out the new building. And then the pathway. This pathway is slightly different from the rest of this area. Honestly, I just didn't have any bricks. That's kind of what it boils down to. I didn't feel like flying off and gathering some clay. So I just kind of made a similar looking pathway with the blocks that I do actually have. And I'm happy with this. I think this is a cool pathway. I kind of always envisioned that I would be changing up this pathway design just throughout the village. But I kind of wanted to keep it like a similar shade. So I feel like I accomplished that here. This is a pretty good alternative to the rest of the path. But I guess let's head on inside. Take a look at the church with the nice mood lighting. This looks really cool in here. I'm happy with this build. And I think it is going to actually be useful. Maybe between episodes, I'll actually go through and throw in some villagers. That's a tough maybe. I don't know if I'm going to do that. But it'll get done at some point. This build will actually be useful at some point. But for right now, it's just aesthetic, and I definitely can't complain about that. But anyway, thank you so much for watching. I really hope you guys enjoyed this one. I can't wait to continue expanding this Italian village. I'm just so excited to have this whole project finished. Hopefully by day 2000. That is the plan. Thanks one more time for watching, and I will talk to you guys soon. Bye.